On Talk of the Neighborhoods, as we look ahead to this new year, well, the future is cloudy, to say the least, at least for those dependent upon federal funding. And joining me in this first half, talking with the Vice President, Operations for ABCD, which is the largest anti-poverty agency here in New England, and certainly here in Boston and Massachusetts. If you care to join us, the number's right there on the screen. Again, you're watching Talk of the Neighborhoods here on the Boston Neighborhood Network. And again, this is for this fiscal year that would end September 30th. What are we talking about in terms of actual dollars? Is there an estimate of what ABCD, how it would be affected?
Well, if the House's proposal goes through, it's basically 46%.
Right.
So that's, to me, that's about 100%.
Right.
So a cut of $300 million nationwide out of a $700 million budget. So there's not much left.
Right.
For ABCD, that would be our entire $6 million budget.
So pretty dramatic. Now, in terms of ABCD itself, I mean, you folks go back quite some time, and I know your founder and longtime leader, Bob Cord, passed away last year. Now John Drewe, who's a longtime executive vice president, has stepped up. Has the organization changed? And of course, if these budget cuts go through, you'll be forced to change. But how is ABCD different these days, and how are they handling the loss of Bob Cord? And
well, Bob obviously is an icon in Boston, and it'll never be the same as when Bob. But John is a great leader. He stepped up. He inherited a great agency, but he also, in these times, he is the person that we need. John has taken national leadership, especially in this crisis. I mean, there was an article by Bob Herbert in the New York Times where John was quoted and talked extensively about what this means for the country, not just Boston, not just ABCD. So John is the leader, and this is what we need, is a strong hand. I mean, he believes in all of the programs that we do, and so he's determined that we're going to make it through this.
And what's been the response of the state's congressional delegation?
In terms of the, everyone has signed on except for Scott Brown, who I went to college with, and so if Scott is listening, Scott, we need you to sign on. So they have been very, very helpful. Our Congressman Capuano has been very, very helpful, and Congressman Markey. They drafted a letter to the president, which I know that he received, and I think that they have been very, very supportive and very outspoken on their opposition to the cuts, not only for Congress, but for the president. That these programs are needed. If you don't have the glue, LIHEAP doesn't happen, field assistance doesn't happen, the elderly programs, all these different things. And it's a house of cards, because next it'll be Head Start, and then it'll be some of the other programs that are vital to people making it. Some people are doing okay, but there's still 9% unemployment in the nation, and that's pretty high.
Of course, Republicans would argue that, boy, if we don't get our financial house in order, you know, none of this will matter. That the U.S. economy will come undone. And what do you say to them?
I say that the alternative is worse. Everybody wants to be fiscally sound, but I think the alternative to not spending in these days and time is really, really. It's going to be detrimental to the country. I mean, there's something going on out there, and people, as you're watching Wisconsin and other states now, people are getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. So there's a movement, and people are going to let folks know that they're not happy.
Well, of course, some would say, you know, the Tea Party movement is in ascendance now, and does that give organizations like ABCD and you and other top members make you a little nervous about your prospects for long-term survival?
I think they're driving some of the conversation, but I think it's clear that in some circles they're a joke. But the conversation is real about cutting versus spending. But if you ask the average American out there, now is the time to be spending, not necessarily cutting.
And so the president's initial, and indeed he inherited the economic meltdown, his initial or efforts to turn the economy around, we still need more of that. We need more of the stimulus and those types of programs.
To me, it's about, Joe, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think it's about spending, and it's important. I don't know if you saw on CBS News where they had all the pennies on the table, and they had the portion of what was, in terms of what was going to be cut, but the rest of the table had all defense, and it had all the entitlements, and none of that was touched. So what we're cutting out of this little piece, and then they showed cutting of CSBG dollars, which funds us, it's cutting 1 penny out of all of that.
Out of that dollar.
Exactly. That was
should they be going after those entitlement programs? Because of course some of those entitlements, and of course defense spending isn't an entitlement per se, but affect many of the people that you're serving as well.
Sure, but they were also tax cuts at the same time. So if you have a tax cut plus cutting this little piece, just doesn't go together. I mean, I don't have the answers, and I'm not going to pretend to have the answers in terms of entitlements and what have you. I think that's a bigger economic issue. But when it represents a bigger piece of the pie, it's obvious that we need to address that piece as well, because the piece of discretionary funding is not going to make a difference in the overall debt.
Well, it wasn't so many years ago, even though it's been a few decades, when had some riots here in Boston related around, I remember in Grove Hall. Really, it was around public assistance benefits. And you mentioned
1967.
Yes, and you mentioned, of course, Wisconsin. That's really about labor unions largely, and collective bargaining rights and other issues. But do you get the sense that this is, a simmering pot, so to speak, and that we could see, some acting out of the kind of anger that some people are feeling? And
I do. I really do. I mean, there's a capworks.org website, and over 12,000 people in less than a week signed on to the petition. And if you read some of the we need this. I don't understand what the president, I don't understand what the Congress is doing. So it hasn't exactly gone viral with 12,000, but without advertising, without anything, there are websites popping up. There are people twittering or tweeting all over about what their thoughts are, and they're comparing it to Cairo and to Wisconsin and
Tunisia.
Yeah, exactly, everywhere. But I think there's a movement afoot. I think we'll be in D.C. for our normal conference of community action. There's 1,100 of us across the country in March, and I'm sure as we send on the Hill, there's going to be a whole lot of other people there that are concerned about programs, because it's not just CSBG.
Right, and you talked about how disappointed you were about the president's budget as well. Do you think he's misread the political tea leaves?
I do think so. I do. I'm not sure who he's getting his advice from. Maybe Daley from Chicago. I'm not sure, but community action is needed. He was funded when he worked in Chicago
he came out of
absolutely.
Well, not quite the same program, but something similar.
Absolutely, and I think that even in his remarks when he came on TV, as you can tell, I've been watching a lot more on TV, but.
As long as you watch this program.
I do watch this program. I do watch.
Makes let's see.
Right. But he has made a point to address or continue to address his friends at Community Action, because we have an infrastructure on the ground in every single state. I mean, we are the federal government's response to poverty everywhere.
Right.
So it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, again, Michael Vance is the Vice President for Field Operations for ABCD. Of course, that's the largest anti-poverty agency in New England, and a major nonprofit here in the city of Boston. Tonight, talking about the potential impact of proposed budget cuts to the federal budget this fiscal year and next. Those being offered by by President Obama. Tonight we're looking at the impact it will have here as well. Michael, we've got just a minute or two left, but I want to thank you for coming in. Enjoyed talking with you. I'm going to hope for your sake and for all the people you serve that some kind of agreement comes out of this, short of a major shutdown. And
I have faith.
I know the good work that your agency does. Thanks again so much for coming in.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.